A Columbia professor by the name of Carl Hart just said publicly that he likes to snort heroin for fun. He literally, Professor Carl Hart at Columbia University, who is part of their psychology department, I believe he's the department chair, has actually come out and stated that he loves to not just mess around with heroin, but a lot of other crazy drugs. And this has really shocked a lot of people. It got my attention. Alicia and I, we're both scholars. We both are university professors, and we were kind of surprised that this kind of statement was out there, and we were really shocked that it was coming from a black man. But I'm going to try to give you some perspective on this. We're going to break this down. Hit the thumbs up button, get comfortable, hit the subscribe button. We're going to get started on drboystv.com right now.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to drboystv.com, the home for intelligent black people. Hello, Max Jerome and Donna Lewis and T Brazil and Bonita and Khalil and Ashanti and everyone else. And I see all of you were checking out what was going on here. And so there's this professor by the name of Carl Hart. He's a professor at Columbia. And I'm going to read a little bit more about him. If I'm not mistaken, he's the department chair of the Department of, or he's a professor of psychology and neuroscience. He chairs the psych department. And he came out and made a crazy statement about using heroin, and a lot of other drugs for work-life balance. Now, Carl and I, the things I have in common with Carl is we're both black men. So that got my attention. We're both scholars. That got my attention. He teaches at Columbia. I got accepted into Columbia for my PhD for finance. I chose not to go there, but I did get accepted. It's a good school. My daughter went to Columbia, and also another thing that's interesting about this brother is that he's honest, and I respect the honesty, but I want to dig into this a little bit and kind of talk about this. I felt very uncomfortable with what he said. I really did. And first, I'm going to ask you guys what you think. How did you feel uncomfortable? Yes or no with what he said? I mean, did you think that he was so give me a yes if you were uncomfortable. Give me a no if you feel like this was cool, like this was okay. This is not a big deal. Like it's all right for him to be honest and to state his truth. I was uncomfortable. I didn't, COINTEL's asking, how do you snore heroin? Thank God I have no idea. I don't want to know, don't want to know nothing about none of that. Let me just say this, with this professor by the name of Carl Hart, who's at Columbia in the psych department, I'm sure that Columbia University is scrambling to try to explain this away and try to help people feel comfortable sending their kids to college to learn from a department chair who is wide open with his drug habit or his drug use or whatever the case may be. I think it's one thing if somebody's doing some things behind closed doors and living their life. I'm not here to judge that. But I think when you go public with you're carrying a lot of people with you. And there may not be a lot of people ready to live in that same space with you. And some would almost argue that it could be a reflection of your drug use that made you crazy enough to even think that it makes sense for you to go out and talk about things like this and to talk about this kind of thing in this kind of way, as if you're seeking to normalize behavior that a lot of us don't find to be normal. A lot of us, black folks, we lived through the crack era. We saw what heroin did to our people. A lot of us got drug addicts in our family. Give me a yes or no. Let me ask another question. Yes or no? How many of you know someone who's been addicted to drugs and saw what damage it can occur? Give me a yes or no if you've seen this. I'm gonna definitely start off with a yes. My favorite uncle died from drugs and alcohol after years of use of those drugs, and it destroyed everything we had. I love this man. He was my older brother, basically. He was my like if you asked me when I was 7, who's your favorite person on the planet, I would have said him. I followed him around. I looked up to him. I loved him to death. and it was nothing but a string of continuous disappointments to watch him deal with his own demons. My father came back from Vietnam. He said that he had a drug. The father that raised me, I'm not talking about the sperm donor. I'll tell you about him in a minute. He also had dabbled in drugs in a negative way. Well, my father came back from Vietnam. He had a heroin addiction. And to his credit, to tell you what kind of man he was, I talk about my daddy a lot because my daddy's the one who gave me the strength to deal with all the fools that are out here. Like, I ain't scared of none of y'all because my daddy taught me to be a soldier. My daddy was a Vietnam veteran. He taught me to be strong and fearless, and I love him for that. But also, he told me about heroin, and he educated me on heroin in a very abrupt way. You know, we'd be driving down the street, and he'll point out some dude on the corner laying down, like some homeless person. He would say, You see that motherfucker over there?" I'd be like, "Yeah." He's like, "You want to be like that?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, don't mess with drugs." Because I knew that dude in high school, and he was the man in high school. Everybody liked him. All the girls wanted him. Now look at him. Do you want to be like that? And I was like, "No, I don't want to be like that." Right? That's how I learned about drugs. And I can tell you, I could keep talking. Right? My biological father was in prison for drugs. So I'm not a fan of this stuff, right? I'm not a fan of what drugs do to the black community. I'm not a fan of how drugs were used to destroy us. Drugs were planted in our community, and I'm a little bit offended by what this brother says. I don't want to be mean to him. Maybe he's trying to make a point, right? Maybe he's making a point that we should decriminalize drugs. Maybe he's making a point to say that when someone's addicted to drugs, they should get treatment rather than prison, right? I think that makes sense, right? But when you get to this point where you're like, "Yeah, dude, let's all go hit some ecstasy and smoke some cocaine, bro. Yeah, yeah, that's the ticket." No, I don't want to hear that, man. I don't want to hear none of that. I don't want, and it's an embarrassment. My goddaughter, she's like my daughter. When her baby's born in April, that will be my grandchild. That's how close we are. She went to Columbia. I love Columbia, but one thing I remember about Columbia was I was a little uncomfortable with the degree to which the university supports this very undisciplined white liberalism. That anything that's new and different is good. That any idea that's liberal is a good idea. Well, no, some of your liberal ideas are terrible for black people. Some of this white liberal arrogance that leads us to just think that anything's okay, anything goes. That a woman who sleeps with 800 men in a week, that you say something. If you say, "Well, that's a little dangerous," you're slut shaming. Or somebody who wants to gain 400 pounds on Popeye's chicken, and you say, "Maybe you should work on your health and your immune system so you don't die if you catch a virus." Then, well, no, you're fat shaming. You're fat shaming. No, I'm trying to help somebody. I'm trying to help somebody live a healthy life. Some of these ideas are just insanity. And so I like Columbia as an institution. It was a good experience, but there were times where I'd be like, "Y'all doing too much. You're doing a little bit too much. You sound just as crazy as some of those ridiculous extremists on the right wing. You sound just as crazy as they do." So right now, I'm just gonna say this, brother. He's got some explaining to do. If he's listening, to this video, he's a black man. He can come on my channel. I would love to interview him and let him explain his point of view. I'm not comfortable with it per se, but if he wants to come in, I would let him talk because I'd like to hear him kind of explain it. But I think this idea of sort of talking about your drug use like it's normal and like it's cool, it sounds like you're trying to justify your own BS. It sounds like you're trying to normalize behavior that a lot of us don't feel to be normal. So anyway, let me move on. Let me read a little bit more of this. By the way, there's my Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, if you haven't done that yet, please do that. Also, there's my Instagram. So feel free to follow me on Instagram. We have good conversations. I like to use my platform to promote black intelligence and critical thinking. So if you're into that kind of thing, please feel free to follow me. All right, so let me read this article, and I want you to hear some of his words, these quotes. Give me a yes in the chat that you can still hear me. I'm actually I'm on another screen now. Give me a yes to let me know that I'm still coming through. This is from the New York Post. It says Carl Hart is a Columbia University professor of psychology and neuroscience. He chairs the psych department and has a fondness for heroin, not only as a subject of scholarly pursuit, but also as a substance for personal use. At 54, the married father of three has snorted small amounts of heroin for as many as 10 days in a row and enjoyed it mightily, even if, as he recalls in his new book, Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear, he's experienced mild withdrawal symptoms, quote, 12 to 16 hours after the last dose. But as Hart sees it, the discomfort is a worthwhile trade-off. Quote, this is a quote from him, y'all. There aren't many things in life that I enjoy more than a few lines by the fireplace, a few lines of heroin by the fireplace at the end of the day, he writes, pointing out that the experience leaves him refreshed and prepared to face another day. All right, I'm gonna ask you all another question. What did y'all think about what he just said? You know, there's nothing like a few lines of heroin by the fireplace to get me ready for the next day. Does that sound crazy to you? Or does that sound like it could be normal on any level? It sounds like, you know, you're a dope fiend. You know, there's a guy that you probably heard of, a rapper by the name of Ice Cube, who happens to be a friend, and I respect Ice Cube a lot because Ice Cube, in my view, he gave one of the best PSAs ever for drug use that I've ever heard. He literally was one of the most significantly influential individuals in America when it came to getting black youth to stay away from drugs. You remember when Nancy Reagan back in the day? Some of y'all old enough to remember that she had this stupid slogan, "Just say no." That didn't work. That didn't work. But Ice Cube had a PSA that worked like a charm. And let me give you what the PSA was. It was in a song called "Dope Man." Give me a yes or no in the chat if you remember Ice Cube's song "Dope Man." It was once said by a man who couldn't quit. Well, you know what? He had one line in the song, and I swear to God, I believe this was a PSA against drug use that a lot of our young people could use today. And the line was this: he said, "If you smoke cane, you a stupid motherfucker. Known around the hood as a schoolyard clucker. Doing that crack with all the money you got on your hands and knees, searching for a piece of rock." Anybody remember that? Anybody remember that lyric? Right? And it sounds crazy that lyric actually had an influence on young people, but hip hop has always been one of the single most influential voices in the entire black community. Now, and the difference now is that instead of PSAs, instead of the music actually telling young people to stay away from drugs, the music is now telling them to run toward the drugs. The music now is telling you to go pop a Molly, get the Percocets, do what you do, right? And so here's the problem. Here's the problem. I got a call 2 weeks ago from a friend of mine who's a mother of a 22-year-old young black male. And I knew this little boy when he was 12, 13 years old. He's a great kid, very smart, very capable. She said, "We got a problem." She said, "My son is hooked, is messing with them Percocets, and now he's an addict. Now I can't even trust my own son." And that's after I had another call from another mother. Again, this is why you got to have daddies in the household. This is my other beef with white liberals. When they tell you that daddies are not necessary, neither one of these sons have their daddies right there in the household to monitor them on a daily basis. Fathers matter. So another woman that I know had a son who got to be about 17. He started messing around with heroin. He got him a little snow bunny. Snow bunny introduced him to heroin. Because black folks ain't the ones who originate all that. We don't grow the coca leaves in our neighborhood. We don't know how to make the heroin, right? We import that, right? And he started messing with that heroin. He ain't been right since. The last 4 years, his mama had to move to hide from her own son because she was afraid her son would find her and rob her. So when you hear this guy, who's gotten on this white liberal train, because apparently he's very smart. I didn't look up his bio, but I'm sure he's got lots of extraordinary credentials in his background, and he's done very well. You don't get to become a professor at Columbia by being average. You have to be not just good, but you have to be extraordinarily good at what you do to get the job on the faculty at Columbia, let alone become the department chair. So God bless him for that. But sometimes when you might think you're successful when really you're not. Sometimes you think that you are winning when really all you've done is you've gotten acceptance from crazy white people who teach you that things like this are normal. And then this is, in fact, it would be an insult to smart white people to even say that white people think this is normal. I don't think all white people think this is normal. I don't think all black people think this is normal. I think that people are looking at this guy and saying, "Negro, what is wrong with you, man? Go get your help in secret. Like, go call up your therapist or go to your rehab privately and keep that to yourself. Ain't nobody out here trying to hear all of that." So anyway, let me keep going. Please hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button if you have not done it yet. And also feel free to follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is right there if you want to follow on Instagram. All right, so let me read a little bit more about this Professor Carl Hart, who is the head of the psychiatric, or excuse me, the psychology department at Columbia, who basically seems to enjoy telling everybody about how he loves to use crazy drugs like heroin and whatever. So it gets deeper. So in this article in the New York Post, it says Hart, who studies the effects of psychoactive drugs on humans, finds his use of the narcotic to be, quote, as rational as my alcohol use. Like vacation, sex, and the arts, heroin is one of the tools that I use to maintain my work-life balance, end quote. So what he's attempting to do here, unfortunately, is he's seeking to normalize his behavior by comparing it to things that you consider to be normal. He's basically saying that if you take a drink every now and then, you're no different from somebody who uses heroin. If you take a vacation, you might as well be a dope fiend. If you've ever had sex in your life and you enjoy sex, or an art museum, then you're just like people who snort heroin by the fire. I reject that comparison. And also, here's another thing too. When I was at Syracuse University, just to tell you, some of the crazy stuff that people normalize. I remember getting into a fight with another black professor. Actually, he was a black faculty member, and this guy he was the head of like some group for the black law students, and I was on their listserv because I wanted to just kind of support what they were doing. And I kind of had to challenge this brother because every single event that they had, every single gathering they had, they were always promoting the alcohol. The free alcohol was always the draw that got everybody to come to the event. It was always like, everybody, let's get together for happy hour. Everybody, let's get together. We got free drinks and we got more bourbon this week. and I just kept seeing alcohol, alcohol, alcohol. And then I kind of had to ask him. I said, can we talk about something that young black attorneys can do that's productive for the world instead of just always drawing them in with liquor? Like, is liquor? I know lawyers drink. Like, I know a lot of alcoholic attorneys. And Syracuse, actually, believe it or not, Syracuse University, where I used to teach, is known for its alcoholism. We actually had a former student who wrote a best-selling book. I believe it was called like Smashed or something. And on the cover of the book, there's an image of this little skinny white girl sort of slumped over on the curb after she had just vomited up to the point where her insides were coming out of her body. Like she was vomiting the bile inside her stomach because she would get drunk every Thursday and stay drunk all weekend. Give me a yes or no in the chat if you've been on college campuses and you've kind of seen this. Well, Syracuse, we were known for that. Like, Syracuse to this day is still known as a heavy party school. So be really careful if you send your children to schools like that, because they think alcohol and being drunk all the time is a normal thing. And nobody talks about how many people end up becoming lifetime alcoholics. I know a lot of people who took their first drink in college who became alcoholics for life. But also, I remember when I was at Syracuse, so I got into this argument with this faculty member about the drinking thing. And of course, I'm the hater. It's like, boy, why are you hating? Why are you doing this? I'm like, man, I'm not trying to hate. I'm trying to give these young kids a future. I'm trying to help make sure that they hear from older black men something that's going to empower them. What alcohol and drugs do to our people. I mean, most of us have that drunk ass uncle. Maybe we had a daddy who drank too much, and it's fucking painful, man. It hurts. It's sad to grow up as a child. Give me a yes or no if you've seen this. Like, it's sad to grow up as a child of an addict. It is. It's. I mean, you can't depend on them for nothing. They hurt. They break your heart, hurt your feelings. Don't show up when it's time to pick you up at school. They embarrass you. It's ridiculous. So I challenged this brother. We really got into it. So check this out. Well, I don't know if it was before that incident or after. I was at dinner with this guy, the same faculty member who was arguing with me about what I said about the alcohol. And I went to dinner with him, and I sat there and watched this guy at dinner literally take about 10 drinks. And then I saw him get up and get in his car and drive home after he had literally drank, like he was in one drink after another after another. He must have had 8 to 10 drinks, and it was heavy liquor. I don't remember what it was. I don't know different liquors because I don't mess with that stuff. When I saw what alcohol was doing to my uncles or relatives, I said, man, I ain't touching none of that. Whatever they got in that bottle, it must be good. I don't want to know what it is because I don't want to be out here sloppy and drunk, because I know guys who've gone to prison because of things they did while they were drunk. I know guys who got killed over stuff they did when they were high or drunk or whatever. Malcolm X used to say that the white man will sell you the liquor bottle and then he'll lock you up for being drunk. So they'll sell you the drugs and then lock you up for possessing the drugs. They've been doing this to black people for a long time. Now, here's the thing. I think Professor Hart gets that. And I think that part of the reason he's seeking to normalize his drug use is so that he can get us to have a more rational approach to how we deal with drugs as a society. I'm in favor of that. I'm in agreement with the decriminalization of it, all of that, right? I'm in complete agreement with that. But decriminalizing drugs or even legalizing drugs is very different from going over that line and normalizing and encouraging drug use. You stepped into that ugly zone of normalizing and encouraging behavior that leads to the destruction of millions of young people in this country. Do you know? So let me keep reading this article because he talks more about not just heroin. This man, he needs help. He really needs help, and I think he's an embarrassment to that university. If I'm at Columbia and I'm sending my child to that school, I'm thinking twice about that. You know, I think it's okay for you to say, look, I don't think a person should go to prison for using dope, but it's another thing for you to say, yeah, I use dope too, and it's really great, and it makes me just as normal as you. Nah, man, you a dope fiend, partner. Like that's what you are, homie. Like you need to go see a doctor because you out here embarrassing people because you've actually got to the point where you think that your behavior is normal. And maybe the reason you think it's okay is because you've been successful in other areas of your life, right? You've been able to go get the PhD and teach at Columbia and all this other stuff, but that does not mean that you are somehow incapable of being called out for debaucherous, ridiculous behavior. Let me keep going. Please hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe. We're really trying to build black media. We're trying to be intelligent. So I hope you'll support. Also, if you want to see some of the books I've written, I don't talk about my books much, but there's a URL for drboycebooks.com. I got a few books. You can feel free to take a look at them. And also Dr. Claude Anderson's books are there too. So his reason for coming clean, this is according to the New York Post. Give me a yes in the chat if you can still hear me. His reason for coming clean about doing opiates and the like is to advocate for decriminalizing possession of recreational drugs. The book makes the case that, quote, the demonization of drug use, not drugs themselves, has been a tremendous scourge on America, not least in reinforcing this country's enduring structural racism, end quote, according to the publisher. So, you know, unfortunately, what he's kind of doing, again, is he's kind of trying to do what a lot of people do when they have their own specific agenda. They like to carry black people along with them. They like to take their issue and then make it a black issue. Like, so for example, if you're mad about the riots of all the crazy Trump supporters on the Capitol, well, and you want black people to jump in and help you, you say, no, these were white supremacist riots, right? And I was like, well, if these are racially based riots, why weren't they attacking a black neighborhood? Why were they attacking the Capitol? I didn't know a lot of black people that were inside the Capitol, but if you go a few blocks down the street, there's probably a black neighborhood they could have attacked. But you know, but the reason they tell you that it's a racial is because they want you to get on board. Or when they talk to you about immigration, they'll be like, oh, well, you should support wide open immigration, open borders, because it's racist not to support open borders. No, just because you tell people from Mexico that they have to fill out paperwork like everybody else, that they can't violate federal law, that doesn't mean that you hate black people. That just means that you are asking people to follow the law, just like you asked us to follow the law when you were locking us up for 100 years because somebody sold some dope in 1982. Like, so what I'm seeing here, my point is to say that when he talks about the racial issues behind drug related incarceration, I think it's very important for him to distinguish that from the fact that you're trying to justify weird debaucherous behavior. Like that has nothing to do with or structural racism. That has to do with you being a drug addict trying to get people to think that that's okay. And you know, but I mean the whole idea of demonizing drug use and incarcerating people for drug use, I agree. We shouldn't lock people up, but that's very different from advocating for drugs. So it said also, Hart told Insider that he hopes to see President Biden work toward federal regulation and licensing of the use of substances that are often described as neighborhood scourges. And by his logic, if people are going to indulge, they should at least do it safely. For instance, he told the site, if you're going to use opioids, don't use alcohol as a background. It increases the likelihood of respiratory depression and death. So y'all get that? Everybody get that? Everybody hear that? So when you start when you start taking opioids and using your heroin, make sure you're not drinking at the same time. Do you guys get that? Did you write that? Give me a yes in the chat if you know when you start snorting your heroin that you don't want to be drinking at the same time. Okay. All right. So check. All right. Got to write that down. All right. Don't drink while snorting heroin. Okay. Good. All right. I'm ready. All right. Give me my smack. Um, it's not just heroin that keeps Hart centered, he claims. This is what keeps him centered. He said the Prof is also a fan of the effects brought on by MDMA, better known as Molly or ecstasy, and methamphetamine, a drug that has caused the most overdose deaths in nearly half a century in the U.S. Or sorry, this caused the most overdose in nearly half the U.S. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. In describing MDMA, which is Molly or ecstasy, a lot of rappers like to rap about it. He described intense feelings of pleasure, gratitude, and energy. Quote, when I'm rolling, I just want to breathe deeply and enjoy it. The simple act of breathing can be extremely pleasurable. So that's not all though. So okay, so he's talked about the fact that he likes this is a Columbia professor now. He's talking about how he likes to use heroin. He likes Molly, he which is aka known as ecstasy, which all the rappers rap about. He likes methamphetamines. What else does he like? Like so crystal meth is one of his favorites. And then also they said he's found pleasure in snorting a version of so-called bath salts, a synthetic cathinone that's been linked to disturbing behavior from barking to breaking into people's homes. Hart's assessment is quote unquote unequivocally wonderful. In his book, he recounts the effects as being quote euphoric, energetic, clear-headed, and highly social. Nice. That's what he writes here. So nice, in fact, that he writes about wanting to take the drug ahead of some awful required social event, such as an academic reception. A rep for Columbia has not returned the post request for comment on Hart's illegal drug use. So so apparently he says that he takes the bath salts before he goes to public social events. Okay. So here's the other side of that story. While recreational drug enthusiasts may salute Hart, the medical and addiction community may find the Prof's utopian approach less than ideal. According to the CDC, in 2018, nearly 15,000 people died from drug overdoses involving heroin in the U.S. Some experts maintain that even legalizing cannabis, the mildest of recreational drugs, poses dangers, including an increase in visits to emergency rooms, as one recent report from the University of Michigan found. Plus, weed can have serious health effects. Quote, smoke a couple times a day and marijuana will knock off your memory. That is pretty certain, said Christopher Hopfer, a professor of psychology at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. And there's no question that legalization has a normalizing effect on something that used to be against the law. Now, again, I'm not here to tell you, I'm not here to tell anybody what they should and should not do. And I know that when it comes to cannabis is obviously, that's obviously a topic that's controversial. I use a CBD based product on my knee. My knee gets real stiff because Alicia won't let me move to a warm climate. I live in this cold ass Illinois, so I put this CBD oil on my knee whenever I'm working out, and I like it, right? But one thing I stay away from is the THC. And let me tell you what, as a black man, why I stay away from any mind altering substance. The reason that I choose, and again, this is just me giving a perspective. You can decide what you want to do. The reason I'm a fan of black men, especially, and women as well, to staying away from substance abuse of any form or any mind altering substance is because you're at war. You're in a situation where you are part of a population that is consistently under attack. If you are a black man in America, this country has been attacking you since before you were born, not the day you were born, before you were born. That's why they put all the abortion clinics in black neighborhoods, because they don't want little Negroes like me to even exist. When my 17-year-old mother gave birth to me, I'm sure that the Planned Parenthood people would have been very happy to see her. And so because of that, because I became aware at an early age that I have to be careful, that I have to be thoughtful, I have to be strategic in every step I take, every move I make, so I don't end up in prison or a casket as they want the black man to be. I felt that mind altering drugs was a way was something that could make me more vulnerable. What is an example? Well, if you think about how many times black men got life in prison because they went to the club, got a little drunk, somebody stepped on their shoe, they got into some gangster shit. Next thing you know, somebody's dead or in jail. How many times have you heard stories like that? How many times have you seen situations where a black man was beaten and murdered by the cops, maybe because he was drunk or high or whatever, or chilling and vulnerable. I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay for predators to be predators. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that begging the predators to be nicer people doesn't usually work. I'm saying that you'll never hear about a member of the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam specifically speaks against black men engaging in mind-altering substances. They do, and so you'll never hear about a member of the Nation of Islam ever being murdered by cops, shot up in the club, or just getting into some stupid situations because they were drunk or they're high, right? Because they're always alert. A soldier must always be prepared. He must always be alert. So, and also the members of the Nation of Islam, they are disciplined, strong, intelligent men who tend to roll in groups. The white man doesn't. They pick off the weakest links. They pick off the guy who's not alert. They're going to take out the man who doesn't know what's going on. They're going to take out the man who's playing checkers, not the guy who knows how to play chess, not the guy who's rolling with his posse, not the guy who's fully prepared psychologically and otherwise. Right. So what I'm saying to you is that I'm not telling you what to do. I don't do that. I believe in freedom. I believe in freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of action. I believe in freedom of everything. Right. Be free. But what I'm saying to you is just because I'm telling you to be free doesn't mean I'm telling you to be stupid, because freedom also gives you the freedom to be stupid. And I'm asking you to, not because I said to do it, but because you of the world you live in. You live in a society where people are trying to take you out at every available opportunity. Some of y'all got loved ones who got 100 years in prison. Some of y'all got relatives who died at the age of 22. And I remember hearing a story about World War II. You guys know I watch a lot of documentaries about war because I like to understand war and competition and how human beings really act when they don't give a damn about you. And I don't believe anybody cares about us. So I'm really just not a fan of waiting for white people to love me. I can't do that anymore because I'm not that weak. And I was watching this documentary about after World War II, when the Germans had been conquered and the Russians and the Americans were frenemies, right? They were allies just for the moment, but they knew they'd be enemies right after the war because the U.S. had the nuclear bomb. Well, there was a rush to get to Berlin first, right, between the Russians and the Americans. Well, why were they trying to get to Berlin first? Well, they were trying to get to Berlin because the Germans had the best scientists in the world. The Germans had engineers that had created the first rocket ships. But actually, it was a Nazi who actually got us to Mars. A guy named Werner von Braun, who got us not to Mars. I'm sorry, to the moon. I said to Mars. We ain't been to. Well, we sent stuff to Mars, but so maybe you could say he got us to Mars. But you get the point. He started the whole NASA program. The Germans created they had the best submarines. They had the best tanks. They had the best everything. So they wanted everybody wanted these German scientists. So check this out. Pay attention now. This is where mind-altering substances makes you vulnerable. So the Russians were trying to convince the German scientists to come back to Moscow. A lot of them wouldn't do it. They were like, our family's here. We don't want to go to Moscow. And so what you know what they did? They said, "Oh, well, we hold special celebration for you. We hold party for you, and we bring lots of vodka." So they're like, "Oh, okay, yes, we love to have the vodka. That would be great," right? In their German accent. So they had this party, and the Russians brought all this vodka, and they got the German scientists pissy drunk. And while they were drunk, they grabbed them and they kidnapped them and threw them in the back of the truck and took them to Moscow. This is a true story. So my point is to say that when you sleeping, somebody's gonna play you for a sucker. When you are not alert, you are vulnerable. Some people won't get it. I tell you what, like for example, I like the sister's comment here. She says, "What's happening with Boyce? I used to be able to watch some of his content. It's getting more and more difficult, very one-sided, very bushy. What WTF?" Well, people like that shouldn't be on the channel, right? Like I'm not gonna block you from the platform, but I'm gonna beg you. I'm not gonna block you, but I'm gonna beg you to leave, because I tell you guys in the beginning when we start these conversations that these are discussions for intelligent Black people. These are not conversations for knuckleheads. These are not conversations for average people. These are not conversations for people that fall for the okie doke. There's plenty of places you can go that's going to teach you how to be a typical Negro. There's plenty of places you can go that will teach you how to twerk, that'll teach you how to, that'll teach you how to smoke weed. There are plenty of places that'll teach you how to be average. There are plenty of places that will teach you how to be ignorant. There are plenty of places that'll teach you how to get on that dope. There are plenty of places that'll teach you how to become a dirty ass alcoholic or slut. Whatever it is you want to be, there's places that'll show you how to do that. This ain't one of those places. I am going to challenge you to go to places where the typical Negro will not go. So when I'm looking at this and I'm hearing this brother at Columbia, and I think I'm proud of him, right? It's great. Like these really, these pretty smart white people at Columbia like you, and I congratulate you on that. I mean, I know how hard it is to get a PhD, and I know how hard it is to get to the top of your field. I respect that. But when you're running around and you're acting like it is some sort of racial justice issue to encourage young people to go use heroin and Molly and meth and all this other shit, you are working, unfortunately, in direct contrast to those of us who are trying to get our young people ready for the future. Everything you're saying is in complete contrast to what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to get black people off of the damn dope. Drugs destroyed our community. They dropped that crack in our community. It was like a nuclear bomb. When that heroin hit the community, so many of our kids had to grow up with mamas so hooked on heroin that they didn't even take care of the babies. You really want to encourage that on any level. You really want us going back to that space. You really want us to think that that's okay, that that's not something we need to be worried about. Well, no, I'm sorry, man. I probably sound crazy to some of y'all, and it's okay. But I think that in order for us to really overcome what we're dealing with in terms of white supremacy and all the things that frustrate us, some of us have to be on red alert. So no, I cannot sit here when you've got an entire music industry that is taking your best and brightest, most capable young people. Now, mind you, they're going after your soldiers. They're going after your alphas. They're going after your future leaders of America when they have some ignorant rapper rapping about how wonderful Molly is and how he likes to get high on the Percocets whenever he can. He likes to stay as drunk as possible. They are preparing these young men to be drug addicts. They are preparing them to be inadequate fathers. Anybody who's had a parent who's hooked on that dope knows what I'm talking about. We got to be there at 4, right?
Yeah, but it takes like 40 minutes to get there.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, that's my fiance talking to me. I'm sorry, y'all. Sometimes my family comes in and they interrupt my podcast when but.
Sorry.
Well, we're talking about that professor. Alicia's a professor too. We're both a couple of college professors. So we're talking about the professor who was talking about how he likes to use heroin for fun and Molly, and it was heroin, Molly, bath salts, and what was that other shit? Meth and crystal meth.
Wait, heroin, that stuff, it brings you down. How can you be productive using downers?
I don't know. He says it takes the edge off.
Yeah, it's very stressful. I wouldn't do it, but I could see why someone could do it, because academia can stress you out.
I get that.
That's not a healthy way of dealing with stress.
He needs to deal with his stuff in private, though. I don't think he needs to be giving out public service announcements telling people how wonderful drugs are.
Oh, is that what he did?
Well, go read the article. I'm going to finish up here.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, go read the article.
Go, though.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. So the point I'm going to throw out here is this. When you're talking about this guy, I don't dislike him. He's invited to the platform. If anybody knows him, tell him he's invited. Unfortunately, a lot of people that work at white universities, they don't really want to mess with black platforms like this. Even though we reach hundreds of thousands of people, I guess maybe they think that some of them think that we're beneath them or something like that. I don't really care about that, but I'd be happy to hear what he has to say. But I get what he's saying about the decriminalization of drug use. I'm in complete agreement with that. But remember, that should stop before you get into this space where you are advocating for drug use as if it's a good thing. Our community has been destroyed by drugs. We're still fighting the effects of drugs. Many of our young people have been lost to drugs. And I don't think on any level you're doing young people a favor by pretending like any of that is okay. The way my father guided me away from drugs, the best anti-drug PSA I got wasn't just the Ice Cube song where he said, "If you smoke cane, you a stupid mother," right? That wasn't the only one. The other one was when my father would literally tell me what happened when he tried drugs. He talks about what it was like when he was in Vietnam and how the drug use was rampant over there and what it did to so many black men. He would show me his friends that had never gotten off drugs and what happened to their lives. And that's what prepared me. If he had just lied to me and made me think that it was fun and that it was cool and that everything was okay, I might have made different choices. So you got to warn your young people in your family, like show them the reality, like show them what this stuff really does, because the problem is that you can get to the point of no return. You know, like those parents I told you that called me and told me that their sons had gotten hooked on stuff or whatever. Those young men, unfortunately, there's a part of their brain that is damaged for life. There's a part of their life where they've done things that they can never take back. So just, let's make sure we have some common sense. I think we have to battle against some of the ideas that get pushed in mainstream media. And while I wish this brother the very best, I cannot approve this message. He's an embarrassment, not just to the Black community, in my view. He's an embarrassment to his university. If I was a faculty member at Columbia, I wouldn't be proud of this. He needs to go get help. You cannot normalize the fact that you might be a dope fiend. Go get help and leave it at that. Well, I gotta go. As y'all heard, it's time for us to leave. So let me roll up out of here. It was good talking to you. Please hit the thumbs up button, share button, subscribe button. I put the Dr. Boyce breakdown up here because if you want to actually listen to this podcast on Spotify, I am on Spotify and stuff like that. So you can feel free to go to the drboycebreakdown.com. And last but not least, I always like to give you guys something free or something before we go. I actually have a program called Black Keys to Greatness, which is my life class. It used to have a fee. There used to be a cost, but now I made it totally free because I love helping young people get advice. And really anybody of any age who feels that you can value from something I might share with you. I don't talk about any financial topics in this class. I talk about life. I talk about what it means to be successful, how I overcome obstacles, how you can manage your time, how you can be successful. Because I believe in our community, we need a generation of super soldiers. We need people that can take on any obstacle, that can look white supremacy in the eye and win that battle, that can compete head to head with anybody, that's not going to sit around whining and complaining, that's actually going to solve problems, think on a high level, energize, unite, work together, and achieve goals. So if you're interested, feel free. It's totally free. I made it totally free. So feel free to go sign up. The URL's on the screen, blackkeystogreatness.com. So I'm out of here, guys. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. Love you. Peace.